Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Pajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Pajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Rishi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Rishi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Uh-oh, not on the floor. Uh-oh, Hare Krishna. Sorry. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but Dravida Prabhu has added a few. Oh, yes. You know how to work the lights? Okay, so the two outside on the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Yeah, leave it. On this 21st day of February 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 12 entitled Devotion, page 520, text 11. Text 11. Ataitarapya shaktosi kartum madhyogamashvitaha sarva karma palatyagam tata kuruyatatmavan ataitarapya shaktosi kartum madhyogamashvitaha sarva karma palatyagam tata kuruyatatmavan ataitarapya shaktosi kartam madhyogamashvitaha Here, over here, right here. Get a book. I think there's one in the closet. Boy, we need to move one of these over. Move one of these over for him. No, I did it. All right. Now. Verse. Tatārapya shaktosi kartam yogamashitaha sarvakama palatyagam tatakuriyatatmavan. Parashakti. Tatārapya shaktosi kartam madhyogamashitaha sarvakarma palatyagam tatakuryatatmaman. Tatārapya shaktosi kartam madhyogamashitaha sarvakarma palatyagam tatakuryatatmavan. Go ahead. Tatārapya shaktosi kartam madhyogamashitaha sarvakarma palatyagam tatakuryatatmavan. Damara. Tatārapya shaktosi kartam madhyogamashitaha sarvakarma palatyagam tatakuryatatmavan. Let me do the synonyms. Ata, even though, etat, this, api, also, ashaktaha, unable, asi, you are, kartam, to perform, mat, unto me, yogam, in devotional service, ashritaha, taking refuge, sarva karma, of all activities, pala, of the results, tyagam, renunciation, tataha, then, kuru, do, yata atman, self-situated. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, if, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. Purport. It may be that one is unable even to sympathize with the activities of Krishna consciousness because of social, familial, or religious considerations, or because of some other impediments. If one attaches himself directly to the activities of Krishna consciousness, there may be objections from family members or so many other difficulties. For one who has such a problem, it is advised that he sacrifice the accumulated result of his activities to some good cause. Such procedures are described in the Vedic rules. There are many descriptions of sacrifices and special functions for the full moon day, and there is special work in which the result of one's previous action may be applied. Thus one may gradually become elevated to the state of knowledge. It is also found that when one who is not even interested in the activities of Krishna consciousness gives charity to some hospital or some other social institution, he gives up the hard-earned results of his activities. That is also recommended here because by the practice of giving up the fruits of one's activities, one is sure to purify his mind gradually, and in that purified stage of mind, one becomes able to understand Krishna consciousness. Of course, Krishna consciousness is not dependent on any other experience, because Krishna consciousness itself can purify one's mind. But if there are impediments to accepting Krishna consciousness, one may try to give up the results of his actions In that respect, social service, community service, national service, sacrifice for one's country, etc., may be accepted so that someday one may come to the stage of pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 1846, we find it is stated, Yatak pravittir bhutanam. If one decides to sacrifice for the supreme cause, even if he does not know that the supreme cause is Krishna, he will come gradually to understand that Krishna is the supreme cause by the sacrificial method. Om Jnanatimurandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Damodar, can you turn these lights up a little bit? I'm sorry, a little too low. Thank you. So, in this verse, Krishna is giving the most liberal instruction for someone who can come to him. This verse is chapter is entitled Devotional Service, and at the beginning of the chapter, Arjuna asks the question, what do you consider the more advanced personality? One who approaches you personally, one who is striving for realization of your, one who is trying to merge into the Brahman. If you study the Vedic Shastra, you'll find that there's basically two parties or two classes of those who try to achieve self-realization, liberation, mukti, satori, nirvana. It's all included there by different names. And the two classes are the personalists and the impersonalists, meaning that there are those who have complete faith in a personal God, a personal absolute, in which one wants to regain one's relationship and eventually go to the kingdom of God. That's actually the final conclusion of this Bhagavad Gita. But there's a whole other class person, but and Arjuna wants to know, well, which do you consider more felicitous or better? So Krishna says, in no uncertain terms, that one who meditates on me, who is a devotee of myself, and so is the best, better situated. But he doesn't discount the other party. He says those who are attached to the impersonal, the indefinite, the aksharam, they also can eventually come to me if they have these qualifications, one of which is to work for the welfare of all. But he says it's very difficult to meditate on it. Klesho adikrataste sham abhyaktasakta chetasam. Avyaktahi gati dukam dehavadvyavapyade, for the embodied, and that includes all of us, to be attached to something, to try to meditate on something with no features and no activities, no qualities. Can you even think of anything like that? But that's what you have to do. The impersonalist needs to clear his mind of all attachment to any kind of varieties of personality, and it's a very difficult job. So Krishna says it's fraught with great difficulty. Klesho adikadatas means a lot of suffering involved. And then he says, but so just fix your mind on me. It's so easy, And Prabhupada several times in the purports to those verses, he says, this stage we've been given the Hare Krishna mantra. The Krishna has infused in that name, with a mystical process, his energies. And by chanting this name through sound vibration, we can fix it. And in that way, progress nicely on the path out of this material world. The basic idea in the Bhagavad Gita and any book of knowledge, of wisdom, of Vedic wisdom, is that the ultimate goal of every one of us should be to try to break the bonds of birth and death. To try to just be involved in aspirations for this one lifetime, somehow get a little money together, relationships, family, all of these different things. It's all very ephemeral. It's all very temporary, no matter how much energy and importance we place on it. In fact, it's a grand illusion. It's a grand illusion to think that we can find a place in this world, in this embodied existence, of security and any lasting happiness. Just ask one of us old-timers now. Many of us, all of us, every single one of us, used to be their age, your age, his age. Zach, I think, is the youngest, at 20? You're youngest now? 19? Yeah. Okay, we have a 19-year-old here. I'm 7. How old are you?
Old enough to know better. 77.
Okay, you're definitely oldest. I'm maybe the next at 70. I'm not going to ask your age, ladies. But we're getting, the point is, we've all been 20, 19, 18, 10, 9, 8, back to 0. So in each of those ages, I mean, I know when I was 18, I had no idea about any of this stuff. I was a total atheist, you know? And you kind of think, I mean, you act in that this is your constitutional position. I like to tell the story, if some of you forgive me because you've heard it before. It's actually very ironic that Krishna placed me in a place where I grew up practically a stone's throw from the ocean on Long Island. Okay, a 7-minute drive in Long Island, New York. Then I joined a temple in New York. That's pretty close. Then I ended up down in Miami Beach, literally looking at the ocean. But I hated to go in the water. Even as a kid, I was too skinny. It was too cold, you know. And I hardly went into Miami. Here, I've been here almost 30 years. I haven't even gone in the ocean. But the idea is that when I was living on Miami Beach, they had just completed they told me, I mean, $1 billion huge boardwalk on the beach, you know. And so it became even more of a spot, you know, for people to stroll along and everything. But Miami Beach is a big retirement area. For the wealthy New Yorkers, they come down and retire, and they live in the hotels up there. So, but after they built the boardwalk and built up the beach, and, you know, we would get these Brazilians come in. You know, these are the children of the upper crust in Brazil, and they would come and they would be, you know, with their tan, you know, buff bodies, and they would go out and play on. Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Lord Chaitanya's principle is universal. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna and is engaged in the service of the Lord is accepted as being in a higher position than a person born in the family of a Brahmin. That is the original principle accepted by all Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement in educating and elevating everyone to the exalted post of a Goswami is taught in the Nectar of Devotion. Lord Chaitanya met the two brothers Dabrukas and Sakar Malak in a village known as Ramkeli in the district of Malda. And after that meeting, the brothers decided to retire from government service and join Lord Chaitanya. Dabrukas, who was later to become Rupa Goswami, retired from his post and collected all the money he had accumulated during his service. It is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that this accumulated savings in gold coins equaled millions of dollars and filled a large boat. Well, a large boat full of gold coins today is more than millions of dollars, probably in the billions. He divided the money in a very exemplary manner, which should be followed by devotees in particular and by humanity in general. 50% of his accumulated wealth was distributed to the Krishna-conscious persons, namely the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. 25% was distributed to his relatives, and 25% was kept against emergency expenditures and personal difficulties, and that came in very handy to get Sanatan out of jail. He was arrested for quitting this government. Later on, when Sakar Malak also proposed to retire, the Nawab was very much agitated and put him into jail. But Sakar Malak, who was later to become Sanatan Goswami, took advantage of his brother's personal money, which had been deposited with the village banker. Now, you imagine, it was actually mentioned a grocer, an honest grocer. You can imagine an honest grocer keeping, like, can you please keep this $250 million for me in a safe place? How much money it was. And he escaped from prison of Hussein Shah. In this way, both brothers joined Lord Chaitanya. Rupa Goswami first met Lord Chaitanya at Allahabad or Prayag, and at the Dashashvamedha bathing ghat of that holy city, the Lord instructed him continually for 10 days. The Lord particularly instructed Rupa Goswami on the science of Krishna consciousness. These teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Srila Rupa Goswami are narrated in our book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Later, Rupa Goswami elaborated on the teachings of the Lord with profound knowledge of revealed scriptures and authoritative references from various Vedic literatures. Srila Srinivasacharya describes in his prayers to the six Goswamis that they were all highly learned scholars, not only in Sanskrit, but also in foreign languages such as Persian and Arabic, especially that's true of Sanatan and Rupa. They very scrutinizingly studied all the Vedic scriptures in order to establish the cult of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the authorized principles of Vedic knowledge. The present Krishna consciousness movement is based on the authority of Rupa Goswami. We are therefore generally known as Rupanugas, followers in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. It is only for our guidance that Rupa Goswami prepared his book, Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, which is now presented as Nectar Devotion. Persons engaged in the Krishna consciousness movement may take advantage of this great literature and be very solidly situated in Krishna consciousness. So that's how the book came to be written. Now, a little summary of the essence of the book. Bhakti means devotional service. Every service has some attractive feature which drives the servitor progressively on and on. Every one of us within the world is perpetually engaged in some sort of service, and the impetus for such service is the pleasure we derive from it. Driven by affection for his wife and children, a family man works day and night. A philanthropist works in the same way for love of the greater family, and a nationalist for the cause of his country and countrymen. That force that drives the philanthropist, the householder, and the nationalist is called rasa, or a kind of mellow relationship whose taste is very sweet. Now, this word mellow was given by Bhaktisiddhanta. There's no noun mellow in the English language in the dictionary, but it's been given a new, maybe it's entered into the dictionary by now. But it means the feeling of pleasure you get from relating to someone else or something else. That's what rasa is. Bhakti rasa is a mellow different from the ordinary rasa enjoyed by mundane workers. Mundane workers labor very hard day and night to relish a certain kind of rasa, which is understood as sense gratification. The relish or taste of the mundane rasa does not long endure, and therefore mundane workers are always apt to change their position of enjoyment. A businessman is not satisfied by working the whole week. Therefore, wanting a change for the weekend, he goes to a place where he tries to forget his business activities. Then, after the weekend is spent in forgetfulness, he again changes his position and resumes his actual business activities. Material engagement means accepting a particular status for some time and then changing it. This position of changing back and forth is technically called bhoga tyaga, which means a position of alternating sense enjoyment and renunciation. I think we've all been there, anyone who's had a job in this world. A living entity cannot steadily remain either in sense enjoyment or renunciation. Change is going on perpetually, and we can't be happy in either state because of our eternal constitutional position. Sense gratification does not endure for long, and therefore it is called chapala sukha, or flickering happiness. For example, an ordinary family man who works very hard day and night and is successful in giving comforts to the members of his family, thereby relishes a kind of mellow, but his whole advancement of material happiness immediately terminates along with his body as soon as his life is over. We're reading in the morning. That's exactly what we're reading. The chapter called Adverse Fruit of Activities, Lord Kapila Dev describes. And it's just describing an ordinary guy at this point who's worked very hard, support his family, done a little, shady dealings on the side because in order to make an extra money. And so now he's at the point of death, and the Yamadutas are coming to pull him out. There's something called terminal restlessness. Ask any nurse. I'll tell you. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that right now. But death is therefore taken as the representative of God for the atheistic class of men. Mrityu sarvaharaschadam, Prabhu to say. As death, I take everything away. The devotee realizes the presence of God by devotional service, whereas the atheist realizes the presence of God in the shape of death. At death, everything is finished, and one has to begin a new chapter of life in a new situation, perhaps higher or lower than the last one. In any field of activity, political, social, national, international, the result of our actions will be finished with the end of life. That is sure. Bhakti rasa, however, the mellow relish in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, does not finish with the end of life. This is the whole point, that we ourselves never die. Isn't that good news? You'll never die. It continues perpetually and is therefore called amrita, that which does not die but exists eternally. This is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. The Bhagavad Gita says that a little advancement in bhakti rasa can save the devotee from the greatest danger, that of missing the opportunity for human life. We're not assured of human birth, because you all are, because you just attended this class. Any little thing in devotional service, just hearing me read the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, you're assured of at least a human life, which is good news. The rasas derive from our feelings in social life, family life, greater family life, altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, do not guarantee that one's next life will be a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. A living entity is offered a particular type of body as a result of his actions in the present body. These activities are taken into account by a superior authority known as Daiva, or the authority of God. This Daiva is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the prime cause of everything, and in the Bhagavatam it is stated that a man takes his next body by Daiva Netrena, which means the supervision of the authority of the Supreme. In an ordinary sense, Daiva is explained as destiny. Daiva supervision gives us a body selected from the 8,400,000 forms. The choice does not depend on our selection, but is awarded to us according to our destiny. If our body at present is engaged in the activities of Krishna consciousness, then it is guaranteed that we will have at least a human body in our next life. A human being engaged in Krishna consciousness, even if unable to complete the course of bhakti yoga, takes birth in the higher divisions of human society so that he can automatically further his advancement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, all bona fide activities in Krishna consciousness are amrita, or permanent. This is the subject matter of the Nectar of Devotion. And we will stop there. Our reading of Nectar of Devotion, pick that up on Monday, and we're getting to the point of, he's describing what Bhakti Rasa actually is. I'm sorry? Is there an excerpt from there? The part about where he's talking about love, how it's expanding? Yeah, that'll come up later. There's obviously an excerpt from the preface. But we can't give up a Krishna book. So we were starting a new chapter now, I think. And, okay. Yes. Krishna's message to the gopis, chapter 47. Did we start that one yet? The song to the bee, Radharani's song to the bee, is in this chapter. It's a very important chapter. This chapter embodies Lord Chaitanya's mood in the last. So, Uddhava's already arrived in Vrindavan. He's had a nice conversation. Uddhava? No? Yeah. He sent him to Vrindavan for two reasons: to give a message and to console his parents and friends and the gopis, and also to learn from them, especially the gopis, the highest level of devotion. So he's already had his conversation with their parents, and very, consoled them. Now the gopis see him, and he looks just like Krishna, so they're excited. When the gopis saw Uddhava, they observed that his features almost exactly resembled those of Krishna. This chapter is called Krishna's Message to the Gopis. And the gopis could understand that he was a great devotee of Krishna's. His arms were very long, and his eyes were just like the petals of the lotus flower. He was dressed in yellow garments and wore a garland of lotus flowers. His face was very beautiful. Having achieved the liberation of Sarupya, and thus having the same bodily features as the Lord, Uddhava looked almost like Krishna. In Krishna's absence, the gopis had been coming dutifully to visit Mother Yashoda's house early in the morning. They knew that Nanda and Mother Yashoda were always grief-stricken, and they had made it their first duty to come and pay their respects to the most exalted elder personalities in Vrindavan. Seeing the friends of Krishna, Nanda and Yashoda would remember Krishna himself and be satisfied, and the gopis also would be pleased by seeing Nanda and Yashoda. When the gopis saw that Uddhava, so the gopis are just arriving to visit Nanda and Yashoda where Uddhava was staying, and then they see him. When the gopis saw that Uddhava was representing Krishna even in his bodily features, they thought he must be a soul completely surrendered unto the Lord. They began to contemplate, who is this boy who looks just like Krishna? He has the same eyes, like lotus petals, the same raised nose and beautiful face, and he is smiling in the same way. In all respects, he resembles Krishna, Shyama Sundar, the beautiful blackish boy. He's even dressed exactly like Krishna. Where has this boy come from? Who is the fortunate girl who has him for her husband? Thus they talked among themselves. They were very anxious to know about him, and because they were simple, unsophisticated village girls, they surrounded Uddhava. When the gopis understood that Uddhava had a message from Krishna, they became very happy and called him to a secluded place and offered him a nice sitting place. They wanted to talk with him very freely and did not want to be embarrassed before unknown persons. They welcomed him with polite words in great submissiveness. We know that you are a most confidential associate of Krishna's, and that he has therefore sent you to Vrindavan to give solace to his father and mother. We can understand that family affection is very strong. Even great sages who have taken to the renounced order of life can't give up family affection cent%. Sometimes they think of their family members. Krishna has therefore sent you to his father and mother. Otherwise, he has no further business in Vrindavan. He is now in town. What does he have to know about Vrindavan village or the cows' pasturing grounds? These are not at all useful for Krishna because he's now a man of the city. Surely he's nothing to do with persons who don't happen to be his family members. Friendships with those outside the family continue as long as there is some selfish interest in them. Otherwise, why should one bother about those outside the family? Specifically, a person attached to the wives of others is interested in them as long as there is need of sense gratification, just as bumblebees have interest in flowers as long as they want to take the honey out of them. It is psychologically very natural that a prostitute doesn't care for her paramour as soon as he loses his money. Similarly, when the citizens find that a government is incapable of giving them full protection, they leave the country. A student, after finishing his education, gives up his relationship with the teacher in the school. A priest, after taking his reward from the worshipper, gives him up. When the fruit season is over, the birds are no longer interested in the tree. Just after eating in the house of a host, the guest gives up his relationship with him. After a forest fire, when there is scarcity of green grass, the deer and other animals give up the forest. And so a man, after enjoying his girlfriends, gives up his connection with them. In this way, all the gopis directly accused Krishna by citing many examples. Uddhava understood that the gopis of Vrindavan were all simply absorbed in the thought of Krishna and his childhood activities. While talking about Krishna with Uddhava, they forgot all about their household business. They even forgot about themselves as their interest in Krishna increased more and more. One of the gopis, now here we go with the song to the bee. This is very famous. One of the gopis, namely Srimati Radharani, was so much absorbed in thoughts of Krishna by dint of her personal touch with him that she actually began to talk with a bumblebee which was flying here and there trying to touch her lotus feet. While the other gopis were talking with Krishna's messenger Uddhava, Radharani took that bumblebee to be a messenger from Krishna and began to talk with it as follows. So first she chastises the bumblebee, because there's 10 different varieties of mad talking. It's all been analyzed by Vishwanath Chakravarti. Prabhupada mentioned that. Oh, bumblebee, you're accustomed to drinking honey from flower to flower, and therefore you prefer to be a messenger of Krishna, who's of the same nature as you. I can see on your mustaches the red powder of kumkum, which was smeared on the flower garland of Krishna while it was pressed against the breasts of some other girl who was my competitor. You feel very proud because of having touched that garland, and your mustaches have become reddish. You have come here carrying a message for me, anxious to touch my feet. But my dear bumblebee, let me warn you, don't touch me. I don't want any message from your unreliable master. You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master. Close quote. Prabhupada explains. It may be that Radharani purposely addressed the bumblebee sarcastically in order to indirectly criticize the messenger Uddhava. Like the other gopis, Radharani saw that Uddhava's bodily feature resembled Krishna's, but she also saw Uddhava as being equal to Krishna. Indirectly, therefore, she indicated that Uddhava was as unreliable as Krishna himself. Radharani wanted to give specific reasons why she was dissatisfied with Krishna and his messenger. She addressed the bumblebee. Your master Krishna is exactly of your quality. You sit down on a flower, and after tasting a little honey, you immediately fly away and sit on another flower and taste. Similarly, only once did your master give me the chance to taste the touch of his lips, and then he left me altogether. I know also that the goddess of fortune Lakshmi, who is always in the midst of the lotus flower, is constantly engaged in Krishna's service. But I don't know how she has become so captivated by Krishna and why she's so much attached to him, although she knows his actual character. Maybe she's so much captivated by Krishna's sweet words that she can't understand his real character. As far as we're concerned, we're more intelligent than the goddess of fortune. We're not going to be cheated anymore by Krishna or his messengers. Then Prabhupada explains, according to expert opinion, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is a subordinate expansion of Radharani. As Krishna has numerous expansions of Vishnu Murtis, so his pleasure potency Radharani also has innumerable expansions of goddesses of fortune. Therefore, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is always eager to be elevated to the position of the gopis. Radharani continued, You foolish bumblebee, you're trying to satisfy me and get a reward by singing the glories of Krishna, but it's a useless attempt. We gopis are bereft of all our possessions. We're away from our homes and families. We know very well about Krishna. We know even more than you. So whatever you make up about him will be old news to us. Krishna is now in the city and is better known as a friend of Arjuna. We know he has many new girlfriends, who are no doubt very happy in his association. Because the lusty burning sensation of their breasts has been satisfied by Krishna, they're now happy. If you go there and glorify Krishna, they may be pleased to reward you. They may be pleased to reward you. You're just trying to pacify me by your behavior as a flatterer, and therefore you have put your head under my feet. But I know the trick you're trying to play. I know that you are a messenger coming from an even greater trickster, Krishna. So please leave me. I can understand that you are expert in reunite. This is another of the verses. I can understand that you are expert in reunite. Left our husbands, children, relatives only for Krishna, yet he didn't feel any obligation in exchange. At last he left us forlorn. Do you think we can place our faith in him again? We know that Krishna can't live for a moment without the association of young women. That's his nature. He's finding it difficulty in Mathura because he's no longer in the village among innocent cowherd girls. He's in aristocratic society and must be feeling difficulty making friendships with other young girls. Perhaps you have come here to canvass again or to take us there. But why should Krishna expect us to go there? He's greatly qualified to entice all other girls, not only in Vrindavan or Mathura, but all over the universe. His wonderfully enchanting smile is so attractive, and the movements of his eyebrows are so beautiful that he can call for any woman from the heavenly, middle, or plutonic planets. Even Mahalakshmi, the greatest of all goddesses of fortune, hankers to render him some service. In comparison to all these women of the universe, what are we? We're very insignificant. We're gonna stop in a couple of minutes and we'll have our tea. Okay? We'll get 2 more minutes and then we'll have our tea. If you're interested, and we'll have prasadam. Krishna advertises himself as magnanimous, and he's praised by great saints. His qualifications would be perfectly utilized if he would only show us some mercy, for we're so much downtrodden and neglected by him. You poor messenger, you are only a less intelligent servant. You don't know much about Krishna, how ungrateful and hard-hearted he has been, not only in this life, but in previous lives. We've all heard of this from our grandmother, Purnamasi. She has informed us that Krishna was born in a Kshatriya family in previous birth and was known as Ramachandra. In that birth, instead of killing Vali, an enemy of his friend, in the manner of a Kshatriya, he killed him just like a hunter. A hunter takes a secure hiding place and then kills an animal without facing it. So Lord Ramchandra, as a Kshatriya, should have, fought with Vali face to face, but instigated by his friend, he killed him from behind a tree. Thus he deviated from the religious principles of Kshatriya. Also, he was so attracted by the beauty of Sita that he converted Shurpanakha, the sister of Ravana, into an ugly woman by cutting off her nose and ears. Doesn't sound very chivalrous, does it? She was a Rakshasi. She was coming to eat Sita. Shurpanakha proposed an intimate relationship with him, and as a Kshatriya he should have satisfied her, but he was so henpecked that he could not forget Sita and converted her into an ugly woman. Shurpanakha into an ugly woman. Before that birth as a Kshatriya, he took his birth as a Brahmin boy known as Vamana and asked charity from Bali Maharaj. Bali was so magnanimous that he gave him whatever he had. Yet Krishna, as Vamanadev, ungratefully arrested him just like a crow and pushed him down to the Patala region, hellish planet. We know all about Krishna and how ungrateful he is, but here's the difficulty. In spite of his being so cruel and hard-hearted, it's very difficult for us to give up talking about him. And it is not only we who are unable to give up this talk, but great sages and saints who also engage in talking about him. We gopis of Vrindavan don't want to make any more friendships with this blackish boy, but we don't know how we should be able to give up remembering and talking about his activities. And we'll stop there. We'll resume on Monday. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Uh-oh. Come on. Okay. All right, we're a little late, so we need to breakdown mode quickly.